Have you ever sat in silence and wondered, is this really what I was created for? To wake up, chase a salary, meet deadlines, and repeat the same routine again and again? Is life only about working to survive, then surviving just to work? Deep down, you feel it, don't you? That emptiness, that question your heart keeps whispering, is there more to me than this? You see, Allah Almighty did not create you to be just another worker in a system. You were created for something far greater. You were not born to chase numbers or run after worldly goals. You were created with a purpose that is eternal, a mission that begins the moment you take your first breath. As Allah Almighty says in the Quran, I did not create jinn and mankind except to worship me. Worship is not limited to prayer alone. It is a life lived in obedience, a heart surrendered to its Lord, and a soul that moves through this world with me. You were not created for a pay. You are created to worship. And worship means fulfilling the reason you were sent, to live in service to Almighty. Reflect His light through your action. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, each of you is a shepherd, and each of you is responsible for his flock. That means you were entrusted with a role far deeper than any job description. You were sent into this world with responsibility, with purpose, and with potential. Not to be employed by people, but to be placed by Allah Almighty. Not to be ruled by systems, but to live with intention. From childhood, we are taught to study hard, get a good job, and earn well. But no one tells us to stop and ask, why did Allah Almighty create me? We measure our success by salaries, promotions, and titles. But on the Day of Judgment, none of that will matter. What will matter is, did you fulfill the role Allah Almighty gave you? Did you live with purpose? Did you walk in obedience? When Allah Almighty created Adam, peace be upon him, He did not hand him a contract or tell him to find employment. He placed him in paradise with an assignment. He gave him responsibility, not wages. Work existed before sin, yes, but it was pure. It was purposeful. It was not driven by fear or competition. It was not about surviving. It was about serving. This world today tells you your identity is your job, that your value is your income, that your purpose is your productivity. But that's not the way of the believer. The believer understands that his worth is defined by his connection to Allah Almighty, not his position in this world. The danger is not in working. Islam encourages effort and excellence. The danger is in forgetting who you truly are. The danger is in believing that your paycheck is your security, your title is your worth, and your career is your identity. Because when you start thinking like that, you start living in fear. Fear of losing what was never guaranteed. Fear of being nothing without your job. Fear of failure. But Allah Almighty did not create you to live in fear. He created you to live in trust, to walk with purpose, to rise in ranks, not through the world's approval, but through His mercy. The greatest people in Islamic history, the prophets, the companions, the faithful, none of them chased worldly careers. They chased meaning. They followed revelation. They lived for something higher. So today, ask yourself, have I confused my career with my calling? Have I forgotten the mission I was sent here to fulfill? You were not created for a paycheck. That is just a means. Your real purpose is to serve Allah Almighty with everything you have, your time, your energy, your skill, and your heart. When you start seeing your life through this lens, everything changes. Even the job you do becomes a form of worship when done with sincerity. Even the smallest act, when done for Allah Almighty, becomes weighty in His scale. So, live not for the temporary, but for the eternal. Walk not in fear, but in faith. Because you were never created to chase money. You were created to walk in purpose. Have you ever wondered why people feel terrified when they hear the words, "We are letting you go"? Why hearts race at the mention of layoffs? Why some people spend every day dreading the future, worrying about salaries, rent, and bills? It's because somewhere along the way, we started believing that our paycheck is what keeps us alive, that our job is our safety, that the signature on our contract is what determines our survival. But that belief is an illusion, a dangerous one. You see, the true believer knows something the world tries to hide. Your provision was never in the hands of people. Your sustenance was never tied to a salary. Your future was never secured by a company. It is written, measured, and distributed by none other than Allah Almighty, the one who created you and sustains every single creature that walks this earth. As Allah Almighty says in the Quran, and there is no creature on earth except that his provision is upon Allah. not upon the government, not upon employers, not even upon yourself. Allah Almighty has taken full responsibility for your sustenance. That means He is the one who feeds the bird in the sky, the fish in the sea, and the insect crawling in the dust. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, if you were to rely upon Allah as He truly deserves, He would provide for you as He provides for the birds. They go out hungry in the morning and return full in the evening. Think about that. The bird does not have a bank account. It does not clock in or out. It does not panic when the clouds gather. But every morning it leaves its nest with trust. And every evening it returns with what Allah Almighty has provided. That is not laziness. That is faith in action. The bird works, but it does not worry. It moves, but it does not rely on its wings more than it relies on its Lord. This is the lesson we've forgotten. We've learned how to work harder, but we've forgotten how to trust deeper. The problem is not in earning a living. Islam encourages effort, hard work, and honest income. The problem is when we start to believe that the job itself is the source, rather than a channel. When we begin to place our trust in creation instead of the Creator. That is when fear enters the heart. That is when anxiety takes hold. Because anything that is in the hands of people is uncertain. But what is in the hands? How many people have lost their jobs, but found new doors open unexpectedly? How many businesses have collapsed, only to be replaced by something better? This is not coincidence. This is the mercy of Allah Almighty, teaching us not to hold on too tightly to what was never meant to last. There is a story in the life of Prophet Musa, peace be upon him, that reflects this truth beautifully. When he fled Egypt with nothing, no money, no belongings, and no support, he ended up in a strange land, alone, afraid, uncertain. But he turned to Allah Almighty and made a sincere prayer from the depths of his heart. My Lord, I am in need of whatever good you send down to me. And what did Allah Almighty do? He opened doors he never imagined. He gave him shelter, honor, and even a family, all without Musa having to beg or panic. Just one sincere moment of trust was enough to change everything. So many people today walk around with tired hearts. They are drained, not just from work, but from worry. Their trust is worn out. Their hope is thin. And the reason is clear. They've placed their security in something that was never secure to begin with. You were not created to live in fear of losing a job. You were created to live in faith that Allah Almighty will never let you go. When a door closes, He already knows which one will open. When a salary stops, He already has written how you will be sustained. Your life is not a random cycle of events. It is a carefully designed path, tailored for your soul. And perhaps sometimes Allah Almighty allows the paycheck to pause so your prayers can rise. Perhaps He closes one path so your heart can return to Him. Perhaps the fear you feel is not to destroy you, but to wake you up, to bring you back to the truth you always knew deep down. When you understand this, your heart calms. You work hard, yes, but you don't panic. You make effort, but you don't beg for results. You plan your life, but you place your trust in the one who controls it. So if you're worried about your job, your future, your provision, remember who holds the pen. It is not your employer, it is not your bank, it is not your experience, it is Allah Almighty. And He is never late, never forgetful, never in need of resources to provide for you. Trust Him. Not just when things are easy, but especially when they are not. Because that is when true faith rises. And Allah Almighty never lets a heart full of faith go unanswered. Why do so many people, even after reaching success, still feel empty inside? They have the title, they have the income, they have the recognition they once prayed for, yet deep in their hearts there is a hollowness they cannot explain, a heaviness they cannot remove. They smile in public but question their worth in private. They go to work every day but they do not feel alive. That is because they have confused their position with their purpose. They have built their identity around their job, but their soul is starving for something more. A person can be admired by the world and still feel unseen by their Creator. They can be surrounded by applause and still be lonely in the heart. That is what happens when you live for position and forget purpose. As Allah says in the Quran, my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death are all for Allah, Lord of the worlds. Your entire life is meant to revolve around Him, not around the rise and fall of your status, but around Allah Almighty, the one who gave you breath, meaning, and direction. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, the most beloved people to Allah are those who are most beneficial to others. Notice he did not say those with the most impressive job. He did not say those with the highest salary. He said those who bring benefit, those who use what Allah Almighty has given them to help, to heal, to uplift, and to serve. That is what it means to live with purpose. Your purpose is not tied to your office. It is not limited to your resume. It is not defined by your rank. You could be a cleaner and still be more honored in the eyes of Allah Almighty than someone with the highest title. Because it is not about what you do, it is about why you do it and for whom. This world glorifies status. It trains us to attach our value to roles and achievement. But the believer's compass is different. The believer is not guided by titles, the believer is guided by truth. And truth tells us that when we return to the earth, and we all will, look at the life of Prophet Dawood, peace be upon him. He was a king, yes, but that was not what made him beloved to Allah Almighty. It was his heart, his humility, his devotion. He would fast every other day. He would pray deep into the night. He used his position not to glorify himself, but to glorify his Lord. Now contrast that with people today who define themselves by their jobs. Ask them who they are and they'll mention their position before anything else. I'm a doctor. I'm an executive. I'm a manager. But ask them why they do what they do, and many don't have an answer. They are chasing something they cannot name. They are running, but they do not know toward what. You were not created for confusion. You were not designed for survival alone. You were placed in this world to carry light. Even the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, understood this deeply. Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, ruled over a vast empire, but he would cry in the night out of fear of accountability before Allah Almighty. Bilal ibn Rabah, may Allah be pleased with him, had no social status, but his call to prayer echoed through Medina and was heard in paradise. Because in the eyes of the world, they were different. But in the eyes of Allah Almighty, they were united by sincerity. So the question is not, what is your job? The question is, what is your role in what Allah Almighty sent you to do? Are you using your skills, your opportunities, your time to bring hearts closer to Allah? Or are you simply trying to survive another day? You see, when you chase position, you will always be chasing. Because positions can be taken, they can be lost, they can fade. But when you chase purpose, your life begins to carry meaning that cannot be erased. Even if no one knows your name, Allah Almighty knows your every action. Even if the world overlooks you, the angels record everything. What is more meaningful than being known by Almighty? So today, take a moment, strip away the titles, forget the rankings, step away from what the world has told you makes you important, and ask yourself with full honesty, am I living for purpose or position? Because one will fade in the grave and the other will shine in the next life. True meaning does not come from being promoted in the world. It comes from being raised in rank before your Creator. Work for that, live for that, and you will never feel empty again. Have you ever had a moment where everything in your life felt confusing, uncertain, even broken, yet something inside you whispered, there's more to this than I can see? That whisper is not random. That feeling is not empty. It is the echo of your soul reminding you that your life is not an accident. It is an assignment. You were not placed on this earth by chance. You were sent here by Allah Almighty, not just to exist, but to fulfill something only you were created for. You were not given breath so you could waste it in meaningless cycles. You were chosen to carry out a divine assignment, unique to you, written long before the world ever knew your names. As Allah Almighty says in the Quran, skip. Indeed, we created man, and we know what his soul whispers to him, and we are closer to him than his jugular vein. He knows your thoughts before you speak them. He sees your heart when no one else notices it. He has already written a path for you, not for your destruction, but for your elevation. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, know that what has passed you by was never meant to reach you, and what has reached you was never going to pass you by. That means every opportunity you didn't get, every door that didn't open, every plan that didn't work, it was never meant for you. Because Allah Almighty knows where you truly belong. And His plan always protects you from what you think you want in order to give you what you truly need. Look at the story of Prophet Musa, peace be upon him. When he was a baby, he was placed in a river. That journey could have ended his life, but it didn't. It was part of the assignment. He grew up in the palace of Pharaoh, the very man he would later confront. He made mistakes. He fled in fear. He wandered through the desert, and yet all of it, every moment, was shaping him for the mission Allah already chosen for him. The same is true for you. Maybe your journey doesn't make sense right now. Maybe the things you've lost have left you shaken. Maybe the silence from Allah Almighty feels heavy. But trust this. If you are still breathing, then your assignment is not complete. If your heart still beats, then there is still work left for you to do. You may not see it yet, but He does. Many people think purpose is something you have to go out and find, but in reality, it's something you grow into. Through hardship, through patience, through seeking. Allah Almighty is not rushing you, He's preparing you. Every delay is developing something inside you. Every detour is building something you cannot see yet. Your job is not to figure everything out. Your job is to stay sincere, to keep walking, and to trust that He will show you the way when the time is right. When Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, received revelation, he was not campaigning for a leadership position. He was retreating into a cave, seeking silence, reflecting on the world's pain. And it was in that silence, in that stillness, that his divine assignment was delivered. Not with fanfare, not with applause, but with words that shook his heart. Read in the name of your Lord. That was the beginning. A command, a mission, a trust. Some of you may feel lost, as if you've wasted too much time, as if it's too late to start over. But let me tell you, it is never too late with Allah. He is not like people who give up on you when you fall. He is the one who lifts you because you've fallen. He doesn't cancel your assignment because of your mistakes. He often uses your mistakes to guide you back to your purpose. What you're facing today may feel like a problem, but in the eyes of Almighty, it could be the very thing that pushes you into your mission. A loss could be a turning point. A heartbreak could be a door. A failure could be the start of your greatest transformation. The key is to stay connected to Him. Because when you walk with Almighty, you are never walking alone. Do not compare your journey to others. Your divine assignment is not supposed to look like anyone else's. You were not created to be a copy. You were created to be a sign, a witness, a servant of truth in your own unique way. You may be a teacher who plants faith in the hearts of children. You may be a doctor who sees every patient as a soul in need of mercy. You may be a mother who raises future leaders. You may be someone who never holds a mic, but whose quiet actions shake the heavens with sincerity. This is the beauty of purpose in Islam. It is not measured by public recognition, it is measured by private obedience. So if you're searching for your assignment, begin here. Turn to Allah Almighty. Ask Him to show you the way. Ask Him to make your heart firm. Ask Him to guide your steps and soften your journey. Then take action, even if it's small, even if it's hidden. Because purpose is not found in noise, it's found in surrender. The most powerful people in the sight of Allah Almighty are not those who are seen by the world. They are those who walk quietly but carry the weight of sincerity. So walk in your divine assignment, even if no one understands it, even if the road is lonely. Because when your purpose is rooted in Him, you will always be exactly where you need to be. Have you ever felt like you're just trying to make it through the day? Like your life has been reduced to ticking boxes, paying bills, and surviving until the weekend. So many people wake up every morning with a sense of heaviness, not because they are lazy, but because they are living without meaning. They are caught in a cycle where everything feels urgent, yet nothing feels important. But you were not created to merely survive. You were created to matter, to make an impact, to walk through this world with a sense of significance, knowing that every moment, every step, every breath has a purpose behind it. Allah Almighty did not place you on this earth just to endure it. He placed you here to leave something behind, a legacy of goodness, a trail of sincerity, a mark of light that carries on even after you return to the soil. As Allah Almighty says in the Quran, indeed, we will not let the reward of those who do good go to waste. Nothing you do for His sake is ever forgotten. Not the tears, not the efforts, not the late night prayers when no one was watching. Allah Almighty sees it all. And He stores every moment of sincerity in His record, never losing even the smallest deed. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, the most beloved actions to Allah are those that are consistent, even if they are small. That means your life does not have to be loud to be meaningful. Your impact does not have to be grand in the eyes of. What matters is your consistency, your sincerity, your quiet devotion to doing what pleases Allah Almighty. But how many of us are stuck in survival mode, living from one paycheck to the next, measuring our worth by what we own, defining success by how busy we are? But business does not equal barakah. Activity does not equal purpose. You can be busy every day and still feel lost inside. Allah Almighty wants more for you than that. He wants you to live with presence, to wake up with intention, to sleep with peace, to serve with love. This is what it means to live with significance, to understand that your time on this earth is limited, but your impact can be eternal. Look at the life of Prophet Yusuf, peace be upon him. He went through betrayal, slavery, false accusations, and imprisonment, years of hardship, years of being hidden from the world. But all of it was shaping him, preparing him, training him for something greater. And when the time came, he wasn't just elevated in position, he was elevated in purpose. He became a source of wisdom, justice, and mercy for an entire nation. He could have lived just to survive, but he chose to live for significance. You may feel that your life is too ordinary for that, but let me remind you, in the sight of Allah Almighty, there is no such thing as an ordinary life. Every soul was created with a unique mission, a specific light, a role in the divine plan. You just have to recognize it. You have to stop seeing your work as a burden and start seeing it as a blessing. Even the smallest tasks, when done with the right intention, become part of your worship. The mother who raises her children with love and patience, she is building a generation. The brother who helps his neighbor without expecting thanks, he is spreading mercy. The student who studies with the intention of benefiting himself is preparing for leadership. All of this is purpose. All of this is legacy. All of this is significance. You do not have to quit your job to live with meaning, but you do have to change the way you see. You have to stop thinking like someone just trying to get by and start thinking like someone who was sent into this moment, into this place, into this exact situation by the wisdom of Allah. You are not just here to earn. You are here to serve, to give, to inspire, to uplift. Sometimes the world will not notice what you do. That's okay, because the one who matters most never misses a thing. He sees the patience you hold, he hears the pain you hide, he rewards the sacrifices you make that no one else sees. This is the meaning of living for significance. You are not moved by recognition, you are moved by your mission. And if you're wondering what your mission is, start here. Make the world better for the sake of Allah Almighty. Be a reason someone else smiles. Carry the burden of someone who is tired. Speak a word that lifts a broken heart. These are not small acts. These are echoes of the prophetic wave. When you live like this, your heart becomes full, not with money, but with meaning. So ask yourself today, am I just surviving or am I living with purpose? Am I just getting through life or am I leaving something behind that will outlive me? Because the believer does not just pass through this world. The believer leaves light behind. Light that guides, light that heals, light that testifies. And when your time is up, it is that light that will follow you into the next life. When titles, salaries, and positions mean nothing, only your purpose will remain. Have you ever looked inside yourself and thought, what am I really good at? Not just what earns money, not what pleases people, but what flows naturally from within. That thing you do with ease, that passion that wakes you up, that skill that others recognize in you even when you overlook it yourself. That is not by accident. That is your gift. And your gift is from Allah Almighty. So many people spend their lives chasing jobs, chasing security, chasing approval, but they never stop to ask, what has Allah Almighty already placed inside me? The world teaches us to look outward for opportunities, for provision, for purpose, but Islam teaches us to start inward, because everything you truly need has already been given to you. The question is, are you using it? As Allah Almighty says in the Quran, say each works according to his own way, but your Lord is most knowing of who is best guided in way. That means each one of us has a path, a way, a gift designed uniquely for our mission. You are not a copy. You are not random. You were created with divine intention. Your ability, your talent, your passion, they are keys to your provision. They are not separate from your purpose. They are part of it. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, verily, Allah has prescribed excellence in all things. This includes your skills, your work, your creativity. It means that when you use your gift with sincerity and for good, it becomes worship. It becomes a means of elevation in this life and the next. But what happens when people ignore their gift? They fall into jobs that pay the bills but starve the soul. They become trapped in careers that look successful on the outside but leave them restless inside. They exchange their calling for comfort, and in doing so, they silence the very potential that Allah Almighty placed within them. Look at Prophet Yusuf, peace be upon him. His gift was the ability to interpret dreams and manage affairs with wisdom. That gift took him from a prison cell to a palace. Not because he chased position, but because he embraced what Allah Almighty had given him, and he used it with honesty, humility, and service. Look at Prophet Dawood, peace be upon him. He had the strength of a warrior and the voice of a worshiper. His leadership came not from political gains, but from using what Allah Almighty gave him to uplift others and establish justice. His gift was not just for show, it was for service. In every story of the prophets, you'll find the same truth. They did not search for worldly power. They embraced their divine gifts, used them in obedience, and trusted that Allah Almighty would open the doors. You have something within you, something sacred. Maybe you write, maybe you teach, maybe you build, maybe you heal, maybe you care for others with a tenderness that changes lives. These are not small things. These are not random traits. They are seeds of purpose. And if you plant them with faith, Allah Almighty will make them grow into provision, not just financially, but emotionally, spiritually, eternally. But many people bury their gifts. Why? Out of fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. But remember, Allah Almighty does not expect perfection. He expects effort. He wants you to recognize that what He gave you is enough, and when you use it with trust, He will bless it. Provision comes in many forms. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's peace, sometimes it's impact. But always, it flows best when it aligns with your gift. When your life becomes a reflection of the abilities Allah Almighty gave you, you begin to experience barakah, a sense of blessing that multiplies, even when the numbers don't add up. There are people who earn little, but live rich lives. Their homes are full of peace, their hearts are full of purpose, their efforts are full of reward. Why? Because they are using what Allah Almighty gave them with sincerity. And there are others who earn much, but feel empty, because their hearts have forgotten the source of all provision. Your gift was never meant to stay hidden. It was meant to serve, to solve problems, to inspire, to uplift. The more you use it, the more doors Allah Almighty opens. But if you neglect it, you may spend your life looking for provision in places that were never meant for you. So pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what am I carrying that I have ignored? What do I do naturally that I could be using for good? Because that could be the very thing that brings your lick up. Not just to fill your account, but to fulfill your life. You don't need to chase what's already written for you. You just need to walk in what Allah Almighty gave you and trust that His plan is more generous than anything the world could ever offer. So take that gift, purify your intention, and use it for His sake, for your legacy, for the impact only you were created to make. Because your gift is not just a blessing, it is your provision. Have you ever wondered what your life will leave behind? Not the things people will remember for a few weeks, but the legacy your soul will carry into eternity. When the titles are gone, when the job is gone, when the salary no longer matters, what will remain? The world teaches us to chase positions, to fight for recognition, to climb ladders built by people. But your Creator never told you to live for a title. He told you to live for truth. He never asked you to chase success. He asked you to submit to His plan. And He never told you to search for a job. He told you to seek your calling, your divine role, your sacred responsibility. As Allah Almighty says in the Quran, He is the one who made you successors upon the earth and raised some of you in ranks over others to test you in what He has given you. You were not placed here by mistake. You were appointed, entrusted, tasked with a role in a world that desperately needs people who remember why they were created. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Every one of you is a shepherd, and every one of you is responsible for his flock." This responsibility is not reserved for scholars or leaders. This is upon all of us. This is about what you do with what you've been given. Your time, your influence, your ability, your voice, your heart. It all belongs to Allah Almighty, and it will all return to Him. You were created to lead, not necessarily in status, but in spirit. You were created to have dominion, not to dominate, but to take responsibility, to stand for truth when it is ignored, to speak with mercy when the world chooses cruelty, to live with clarity when everyone else is confused. Dominion does not mean power over others. It means power over yourself, over your desires, over your ego, over your fear. It means knowing who you are before Allah Almighty and walking in that identity even when no one else understands it. Look at the life of Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him. One man, standing alone against an entire society. They mocked him, they threatened him, they tried to burn him, but he did not waver. Why? because he knew his assignment. He knew his Lord. And that knowledge gave him strength that no army could match. The people who leave legacies are not the ones who were always celebrated. They are the ones who were sincere, the ones who remained upright when it was difficult, the ones who didn't trade their values for temporary comfort, the ones who walked in purpose even when the world laughed at them. You don't need the world to applaud you. You need Allah Almighty to accept you. One day, your job will end. Your routines will fade. Your career will be behind you. And all that will remain is what you sent forward. The truth you stood for. The people you helped. The prayers you whispered in the quiet. The sincerity that no one saw but Allah Almighty. That is your legacy, and you must protect it. The world will tempt you to live small, to think only about bills, promotions, deadlines. But your soul was made for more. You were made to leave behind light, and that can only happen when you live with your eyes on the hereafter. Think of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He had no wealth, no salary, no worldly empire. But today, more than 1 billion hearts carry his name with love. Not because of what he earned, but because of how he lived, with truth, with mercy, with clarity of purpose. You have that same opportunity to live in a way that echoes long after you're gone. Not through fame, but through faith. Not through status, but through service. So ask yourself, what am I living for? A job, a title, a paycheck? Or am I living for the pleasure of the one who gave me life? Because when your purpose is tied to your Creator, nothing can shake you. You will work, but not as a slave to systems. You will strive, but not out of desperation. You will give your best effort, knowing that success is not in the result, it's in the obedience. Your career may be temporary, but your calling is eternal. So don't be afraid if others don't understand you. Don't be discouraged if the path is slow. And don't measure your impact by likes, followers, or applause. Measure it by how close your heart is to Allah Almighty. Your time is short, your role is sacred, and your legacy is waiting. So today, as you stand at the crossroads of comfort and calling, choose the one that leads to your Lord. Choose to live for meaning. Choose to walk in truth. Choose to rise with sincerity. And trust that when you do, your legacy will outlive you, and your reward will wait for you in a place far better than anything this world could offer. Because in the end, the job will end, the money will fade, but what you did for the sake of Allah Almighty, that is forever.